The global financial system is undergoing a seismic shift, and at the epicenter is the rise of BRICS and its potential common currency. For decades, the US dollar has reigned supreme, controlling the lion's share of global trade, international reserves, and financial influence. But now, a rising coalition of emerging economies, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, along with newcomers like Egypt, Iran, and others, are challenging that supremacy. They're not just talking about change, they're actively working on an alternative to the dollar, and it's closer than most people realize. If you're still thinking this is just another geopolitical headline, think again, because what BRICS is planning could alter the way money flows, how trade is conducted, and who controls the levers of global economic power. At the heart of this movement is a proposed BRICS currency, a unified monetary system designed to facilitate trade among member nations without relying on the US dollar. Initially seen as a lofty ambition, this idea has picked up remarkable momentum. Russia's Vladimir Putin and Brazil's Lula da Silva have openly called for a new financial architecture that doesn't hinge on Western-controlled institutions like the IMF or the World Bank. China, the economic titan among the group, is leading the charge, not just by words, but by actions. Establishing alternative payment systems, expanding digital yuan pilots, and securing commodity deals in local currencies rather than dollars. To understand why this is significant, we must go back to the Bretton Woods Agreement in 1944. This agreement pegged major world currencies to the US dollar, which in turn was tied to gold. When President Nixon ended the dollar's gold convertibility in 1971, the world transitioned to a fiat system, but the dollar remained the global standard. Oil was priced in dollars, countries held dollars as reserves, and global loans were issued in dollars. This petrodollar system granted the US unparalleled control over global finance, allowing it to run massive deficits, impose sanctions, and influence economies far beyond its borders. But that control is starting to unravel. What makes the current situation unprecedented is that for the first time in modern history, several of the world's largest and fastest-growing economies are uniting to reduce their dependence on the dollar. Trade between China and Russia is now mostly conducted in yuan and rubles. India has signed oil deals with Russia using rupees. Even African countries like Kenya and Nigeria are exploring bilateral trade in local currencies. The reasons are obvious: avoiding sanctions, escaping the dollar's volatility, and asserting monetary sovereignty. But it's not just about escaping the dollar, it's about building something to replace it. The upcoming BRICS currency, which some insiders have dubbed BRICoin or R5, referencing the initial letters of each country's currency, is being envisioned as a gold or commodity-backed unit. If implemented, it would mark a return to some form of asset which could restore trust among nations tired of fiat manipulation. Unlike the IMF's special drawing rights, an artificial basket of currencies, the BRICS coin would be tradable and usable for direct settlement of international trade, initially among BRICS nations, but potentially extending to allies in the global south. What's more fascinating is how technology is playing a role. China has already developed and is piloting its central bank digital currency, the digital yuan. Russia is rolling out its digital ruble. These technologies would allow instant cross-border transactions, bypassing the SWIFT system entirely, a system dominated by the West and often used to isolate countries politically. If BRICS nations integrate their digital currencies through a shared ledger or blockchain infrastructure, it could make their new system not only independent of the dollar, but more efficient, secure, and transparent. Of course, replacing the dollar is not a simple task. The US dollar's dominance is entrenched. It accounts for about 58% of global foreign exchange reserves and is used in nearly 90% of forex transactions worldwide. Wall Street, the Federal Reserve, and US Treasuries form the backbone of global finance. The depth, liquidity, and stability of dollar-based markets are unmatched. But cracks are forming. The US's weaponization of the dollar through sanctions, such as freezing Russia's reserves or cutting Iran off from SWIFT, has driven many nations to seek alternatives. Ironically, the very strategy that gave the US leverage may be accelerating the dollar's decline. Meanwhile, gold is making a comeback. Central banks, especially those of BRICS members, are buying gold at a record pace. China, Russia, India, and even countries like Turkey are building up their gold reserves. Why? Because gold is universally trusted, cannot be printed, and isn't tied to any single government. If the BRICS currency is indeed backed by gold or commodities like oil, gas, or rare earth metals, it could attract not just member states, but also dozens of nations looking for a more stable and neutral trading unit. In effect, this wouldn't just be a BRICS currency. it could become the global South S currency. This movement has already begun attracting attention from countries beyond the core five. Over 40 nations reportedly expressed interest in joining the BRICS bloc or participating in its new financial ecosystem. Among them are Argentina, Saudi Arabia, Indonesia, Nigeria, and even ASEAN nations. If Saudi Arabia, the cornerstone of the petrodollar system, starts accepting oil payments in BRICS currency, or yuan, the psychological impact on markets would be staggering. It would signal the unraveling of a system that has lasted for nearly 50 years. What we're seeing is not an overnight revolution, but a gradual, methodical shift. A multipolar financial world is emerging. In 2024, the BRICS summit in Johannesburg laid the groundwork for currency cooperation, trade agreements in local currencies, and institutional frameworks to support their new system. By 2025, those initiatives are taking shape. A unified payment rail, and possibly a joint central bank to manage the new currency. The timeline is ambitious, but the trajectory is clear. Yet, this raises an important question. Can the BRICS currency really dethrone the dollar? Not immediately, but it doesn't need to. The goal isn't necessarily to kill the dollar. It has to reduce dependence on it. If BRICS nations can conduct 30 to 40% of their trade in the new currency by the end of the decade, it would represent a massive shift in global finance. It would fragment the dollar's monopoly and usher in an era where multiple currencies compete. A situation more aligned with economic investors are paying attention. Commodities are being repriced. Emerging market bonds are being recalibrated. Cryptocurrencies, especially those promoting decentralized finance, are gaining renewed interest as people anticipate a shakeup in traditional monetary systems. If BRICS introduces a stable asset-backed digital currency, it could set a precedent for global financial reform. It would be the first real competitor to the dollar since the euro, but potentially more adaptable because of its backing and technology infrastructure. For the United States, this is a wake-up call. It must reevaluate its fiscal policies, its over-reliance on debt financing, and the geopolitical risks of dollar weaponization. If the dollar is to maintain its role, it needs to be re-earned, not assumed. For now, the dollar remains king, but the throne is no longer unchallenged. What does this mean for the average person? If the BRICS currency gains traction, it could impact exchange rates, inflation, interest rates, and even how you invest. It might reshape trade patterns, affect import prices, and rewire global supply chains. The very nature of financial security, savings, and cross-border investing could evolve. We're entering uncharted territory, and those who are informed will have a significant advantage. To summarize, we are not witnessing the immediate fall of the dollar, but we are witnessing the rise of a credible alternative. The BRICS alliance is not just a political club anymore. It's becoming an economic force with tangible plans, real infrastructure, and growing global support. A new financial order is being written in real time, and it's no longer led by a single superpower. It's decentralized, diversified, and determined to change the rules of the game. If you found this video insightful, make sure to subscribe to our channel, where we dive deep into the evolving world of global finance, economics, and investment trends. We break down complex topics into clear, actionable insights that help you stay ahead of the curve. Don't forget to like, comment with your thoughts on the future of global currencies, and share this video with others who want to understand the financial shifts shaping our world. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay smart, stay curious, and stay ahead.